Hey Chivis, I'm Ivy, and today we're talking about Ohio's data center boom and who really pays for it. If you enjoy stories like this, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's go! A building can absorb billions of dollars, draw power around the clock, and still employ fewer people than a large supermarket. That is the puzzle behind Ohio's data center boom. In the next 10 minutes, we will follow the money, the jobs, the electricity, and the public obligations to ask one practical question. Is Ohio gaining a durable economic asset or simply hosting an expensive machine? Act 1. The promise behind the concrete. Ohio knows what industrial change feels like. During the 20th century, the state built major industries around steel, rubber, automobiles, machinery, and chemicals. Communities such as Akron and Youngstown became closely identified with the companies and workers that supported them. That history explains the attraction of a new wave of investment. After decades of manufacturing decline, enormous technology projects can look like evidence that Ohio has regained its place in the national economy. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and other companies have announced major infrastructure projects in the state, but the headline totals require caution. Announced investment is not the same as completed construction, operating capacity, tax revenue, or permanent employment. The central question is not whether billions of dollars are arriving. Private capital is valuable, even when it creates fewer jobs than a factory. The question is how much value stays in Ohio, who receives it, and which costs are assigned to the public. To answer that, we first need to understand what a data center actually is. Act 2. The industrial machine with a small workforce. A hyperscale data center is not an office park with rows of software engineers. It is a highly secured collection of server buildings, cooling equipment, electrical systems, backup generators, and fiber connections. The computers may support cloud services, online platforms, artificial intelligence, or several customers at once. Its economic profile is unusual. Construction can require a large temporary workforce of electricians, equipment operators, engineers, laborers, and specialized contractors. Those workers can generate substantial local spending while a project is being built. Once the facility begins operating, staffing usually becomes much smaller relative to the size of the investment. Permanent workers may include technicians, managers, security personnel, maintenance specialists, and contractors. The exact number varies by facility, workload, and design, so job counts should come from company documents or local agreements rather than guesses based on construction cost. That distinction matters. A factory tends to combine machines with a large recurring workforce. It buys from suppliers, hires logistics companies, and supports restaurants and services around shift changes. A data center may purchase sophisticated equipment and consume enormous amounts of electricity while requiring far fewer people on site. This does not make the facility unproductive. Digital infrastructure can support research, communications, cybersecurity, logistics, and other industries. Jobs are also not the only measure of public benefit, but employment per dollar invested is one useful test, especially in communities hoping to recover from the loss of durable industrial work. A semiconductor fabrication plant offers a different comparison. It is also high technology and capital intensive, but it generally requires a larger specialized workforce and a broader supplier network. Even then, planned jobs are not existing jobs. Construction delays, market conditions, and corporate strategy can change the final result. So, Ohio is not choosing between old factories and identical new factories. It is choosing among very different economic models. Act 3. Why the map points toward Ohio? Data centers begin with infrastructure. They need dependable electricity, large parcels, fiber connections, suitable zoning, water or alternative cooling resources, and a permitting process predictable enough for companies to plan years ahead. Ohio sits within the PJM interconnection, a large regional electricity market serving parts or all of multiple Midwestern and Mid-Atlantic states. That connection can provide access to a broad grid, Although it does not guarantee cheap or abundant power, electricity prices depend on generation, transmission constraints, fuel costs, market rules, and utility regulation. The state also offers land near major population centers and established transportation and communications networks. For online services, physical distance still matters because information must travel through networks. The relevant advantage is not that a truck can reach every city quickly, but that a well-connected site can serve users with lower network delay. Years of industrial decline left some communities with large parcels, existing infrastructure, and an urgent desire for new development. That urgency can make a project attractive to local officials and residents seeking construction work, new businesses, or a stronger tax base. Ohio has also used tax incentives to compete for these projects. Depending on the arrangement, incentives may affect equipment purchases, property taxes, buildings, or other project costs. The details matter. A sales tax exemption is foregone revenue, not necessarily a direct government payment. The public calculation must consider whether the project would have come without the incentive, what new taxes it generates, and what services the community must provide. This is where a large announcement can become misleading. A company may describe the value of equipment and buildings over decades. A government may count projected investment. Residents may experience the project through roads, substations, water systems, or emergency calls. These are different forms of accounting. Act 4. Following the electricity. The most important public question may be the grid. A large data center can require tens or hundreds of megawatts depending on its design and actual use. A planned maximum load is not the same as current consumption, and a connection request is not proof that the full project will be built. When utilities and grid operators prepare for large customers, they may need new substations, transmission lines, generation capacity, or distribution equipment. Some costs can be assigned directly to a customer through a special contract. Others may be recovered through regulated rates shared by a broader group of customers. The answer depends on the utility case, tariff, and regulatory decision. That makes it inaccurate to say that data centers automatically cause every increase in household electricity bills. Ohio prices are influenced by fuel costs, inflation, plant retirements, weather, transmission limits, and other regulatory choices. Data center demand can still be a significant factor in planning, particularly when many proposed facilities appear in regional forecasts. There is another complication. Grid planners make decisions using forecasts, and forecasts can include projects that are delayed, reduced, or cancelled. If infrastructure is built for expected demand that does not arrive, the financial consequences do not disappear. Someone still owns the unused capacity and the equipment. Capacity markets add another layer. PJM uses these markets to help secure future generating capacity, and auction prices have risen sharply in recent years. Those increases should be sourced from PJM and explained carefully. Capacity charges are only one component of a retail bill, and no single cause should be assigned without a full analysis. The fair policy test is simple to state, even if it is difficult to negotiate. If a project requires an incremental grid upgrade, the project should cover that incremental cost whenever possible. Otherwise, the public benefit must be large enough and measurable enough to justify sharing the burden. Act 5. The costs that do not fit in an investment announcement. Electricity is only one part of the local equation. Data centers can require roads, water, and wastewater capacity, inspections, fire protection, and specialized emergency planning. The impact differs by site, so claims about any particular incident or number of emergency calls need local records. Cooling is another variable. Some facilities use evaporative systems that consume significant water. Others rely more heavily on air cooling, closed-loop systems, or hybrid designs. There is no single water use figure for the entire industry. A credible review should identify the facility, its cooling technology, its permits, and its actual or projected consumption. The same caution applies to emissions. A data center may buy renewable energy credits or sign a clean power contract, but the physical grid supplying it still has a regional mix of gas, coal, nuclear, and renewable generation. New demand can increase fossil fuel generation in some circumstances, but the result depends on timing, location, and the resources available. Backup generators also matter. They are designed for reliability, not ordinary operation, yet they can affect air permits, noise, and emergency planning. Residents may reasonably ask how often they will run, what fuels they use, and who pays if local departments need additional training or equipment. These concerns do not prove that every data center is harmful. They establish a burden of evidence. Each project should disclose its power demand, water use, permanent jobs, wages, tax treatment, and emergency service obligations before approval. Act 6. Turning investment into a public bargain. The strongest argument for data center expansion is that capital has options. If Ohio imposes terms that are less attractive than those of competing states, a company may build somewhere else. Construction spending can be substantial, suppliers can benefit, and new digital infrastructure may attract additional businesses. Grid upgrades can also improve reliability for other customers when they are planned and paid for properly. The strongest criticism is not that the facilities create no value. It is that the public may surrender too much value before knowing what it will receive. An exemption granted for a project that is delayed, downsized, lightly staffed, or expensive to serve may produce a weaker return than the announcement suggests. A better agreement would connect incentives to performance. Employment targets should specify permanent jobs, wages, local hiring, and the date by which those jobs must exist. Clawbacks should apply if a project is cancelled or fails to meet its commitments. Incentive reports should show estimated and realized tax benefits separately. Grid agreements should identify who pays for new substations, transmission, and generation. Water permits should include usage limits and drought contingencies. Operators should contribute to emergency response capacity when their facilities create unusual demands. Local residents should receive meaningful notice and a voice before major projects are approved. The broader lesson is about value capture. Investment is not the same thing as prosperity. Prosperity depends on whether workers earn durable incomes, communities retain tax revenue, infrastructure costs are fairly allocated, and environmental limits are respected. Ohio may be building an important part of the digital economy, but data centers are not direct replacements for the factories that once supported vast employment networks. They are a different asset with different strengths and different risks. The right question is not whether Ohio should reject technology. It is whether the state can negotiate technology projects that pay their own incremental costs and deliver benefits residents can verify. If you found this breakdown useful, consider subscribing for more evidence-based reporting on business, technology, and public policy. And when you hear the next investment headline, look past the dollar figure. Ask how many jobs are permanent, how much tax is actually paid, who funds the infrastructure, and what happens if the forecast is wrong.